we have been lied to. And one of the things that we do when we come here in November every year for the JFK Assassination Conference is we bring in speakers, we bring in researchers, we bring in witnesses, and we discuss the facts that we've been able to unfold. And the point is, there's a lot of information that you've never heard, a lot of witnesses that you don't know about. And as we bring these people to our conference, we're able to find out the truth of what happened in November 22nd, 1962, not the lies that were told subsequently about what happened in 1962. I attended my first JFK ceremony here on the 40th anniversary of 2003. I had just watched The Men Who Killed Kennedy. How many of you have seen that series, The Men Who Killed Kennedy? If you haven't seen it, it's a must. It'll take you about an hour and a half, and it will amaze you with what you have not been told. You'll be able to see things with your own eyes. You'll be able to hear things with your ears by witnesses, people who were there, who treated or took care of JFK's body at the autopsy, who transported JFK's body to the airplane at Love Field. You'll be able to talk, you'll hear a woman who will talk about the Lee Oswald that she knew, which is a complete difference than the fabrication and the lie that we've been told all these years. So by a show of hands, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you are here visiting us from another country? All right, that makes me happy. So what countries do we have represented? Brazil? Canada, we got some Canadas. Where else? Ireland. Where else? Scotland? Australia. Okay, we've got a lot of Texans here, don't we? Do we have any Texans? I was originally a Texan, but I live in Arizona now. What other states do we have here? Nevada. California. Oregon. New Jersey. Colorado. Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. Maryland. All right, we've got a lot of people from a lot of locations. It does my heart good to see that there's so many people here. This close to Thanksgiving. I don't know if you came in specifically for this event or just happened to be in Dallas, but whatever your reason for being here, I'm grateful that you are here. This is a solemn occasion. This is an important moment in our history to acknowledge the greatness that JFK represented and what we had stolen from us on that day in November 22nd, 1963. Our country would be different if JFK was still alive, if RFK had never been assassinated, if John F. Kennedy Jr. was still alive. We would have a completely different country. And it's our job to go ahead and find out what happened and do what we can to make sure something like that never, ever happens again. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to find out where we are in our ceremony, so I'll sign off for just a moment, and I'll be back before you know it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still looking for Robert Groden. He was scheduled to be our first speaker, and just in case he doesn't show up, how many of you know the name Robert Groden? Yeah. Robert Groden is a staple out here. Oftentimes you'll find him over this little area. He has written 3 amazing photo books that are chock filled with amazing photos that many of us have never seen, and research that helps us better understand the assassination and the cover of the assassination. He was scheduled to be our first speaker. We haven't found him yet. He might be having difficulties with parking, so hopefully he'll be able to join us. But he was also featured in the movie, or the videos, The Men Who Killed JFK. Who can tell me what Robert Groden is most known for?
Writing the script for JFK.
Give me money.
Leaking the Zapruder film.
Oh, look at this.
This gentleman over here said it. In 1975, Robert Groden, who was a photographic video expert, came across the Zapruder film, the original Zapruder film, and he made a copy. And in 1975, live on the Geraldo Rivera's TV program, along with Dick Gregory, he played the Zapruder film for the first time. The first time the American public saw the Zapruder film was 1975, 12 years after JFK's assassination. Can you imagine that? That important piece of work was withheld from us, and most of us wouldn't have ever seen it had it not been the work and the courage of Robert Groden. He took a chance, he took a risk. That was a risky thing that he did, but I'm grateful that he did because it's given us a view of what took place right down there on that X. If you're new to Dealey Plaza, there's the X down there that represents the approximate area where JFK's fatal head wound took place. Without Robert Groden's miraculous work at that point and since then, we wouldn't know nearly as much as we know today about what really happened on the assassination. All right. Jill, are you ready? Well, since Robert's not here, we're going to move to the second person on our program. Our second person is Gilles Lazone from Canada. He's also on the board of directors for the JFK Assassination Conference. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would give a warm welcome to Gilles Lazone.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this memorial ceremony.
Can't hear you. Louder.
Okay, there you go. Is that better?
No, speak out.
Okay, I will. My name is Gilles Lozon. I am from Montreal, Canada, and I'm here to somewhat represent Canada, but not authorized by Mr. Trudeau. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to apologize for my hairdo today. Been very busy this morning. So here's my take after over 50 years of reading books, watching documentaries. I put some pieces of the puzzle together, and this is what I came up with. Okay, here are the organization and their mandates that were involved in the Kennedy assassination. First of all, I'd say the CIA, Mafia, Cuban exiles. Their function was to kill Kennedy. Since the CIA has an ethical policy of not killing Americans on American soil, they have hired the Mafia to do its dirty deed. So the Mafia sent an additional team to assassinate Kennedy. Number two, J. Edgar Hoover who hated the Kennedys, and his mandate was to cover up the assassination. Secret Service, who had no respect for Kennedy, their mandate was to create an opportunity. The Joint Chief of Staff, who thought that Kennedy was a threat to national security, being soft on communism, their mandate was to supply a bogus autopsy. Number five, Big Oil, military industrial complex, banks, their mandate was to finance the big event. Kennedy, excuse me. Hold on here. There we go. Their mandate, to supply a bogus autopsy. Big Oil, military industrial complex, their mandate, finance the big event. Kennedy was going to implement oil depletion tax, which would have cost them, Big Oil, millions of dollars. The military industrial complex were involved in exchange for getting the US involved to the Vietnam War, which LBJ obliged them on Monday, November 25th. Only 3 days after the assassination of President Kennedy. LBJ was the head of a two-headed snake. The other head that killed Kennedy was George W.H. Bush. Johnson was the only one that was able to get all the factions together to accomplish the coup d'etat. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Gilles Lejeune from Canada. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to bring up our next, well, actually, before they do that, I've got a question for you. So I see there are a lot of people who are too young to answer the question that I'm going to ask you. But for those of you who are old enough, do you remember where you were when we heard about the assassination of John F. Kennedy? I was in the 5th grade. We'd just come back from lunch, and one of my classmates told me about it. And I didn't have a way to process that. And they let us out of school, went back home, and watched it on TV for the rest of the weekend. And I gotta tell you, I was pissed. not for the reason you would expect. I was 10 years old. JFK was assassinated the day before my 10th birthday, and so they canceled cartoons that weekend that I'd really been looking forward to. But as a 10-year-old, that was what I could accept. And that weekend, over and over and over and over again, I heard the name Lee Harvey Oswald. And then on the 24th, saw him assassinated by Jack Ruby. But that planted a seed in my psyche, and it made me want to look into everything I could find out about the JFK assassination. And I can tell you, if you're new, there is way more out there than you can imagine. I would encourage you to go to that website I told you about earlier, jfkindex.com. Check it out. There are a lot of good leads, a lot of good information. By a show of hands, how many of you know the name Roscoe White? Okay. At our conference that we just had this weekend, we had Ricky White, the son of Roscoe White, come and tell us about his father and his father's involvement in the assassination. And he answered a question that I had long wondered about. If you've seen the photo of Lee Oswald, the phony photo of Lee Oswald holding the rifle, holding the newspaper, if you look at it closely, he's got a really weird stance. Roscoe White, in a photo that his son showed us at the conference, had that exact stance. If you look closely at that photo, look at the chin line. If you look at the Lee Oswald's booking photograph, he's got a pointy chin. The chin in that photo is very rounded, and it matches to a T Roscoe White. So they took Lee's face, put it on Roscoe's body, and framed him when that photo was published in Life magazine. That photo damned Lee Oswald in the mind of the American public. He never got a trial. He never had an opportunity to show his innocence, but he was framed and he was railroaded with that photograph. All right, Judy, you ready? As ready as she's going to be. Now, let me ask one more question. Many of you said you had seen The Men Who Killed Kennedy. If you've seen episode 8 of The Men Who Killed Kennedy, there's a woman featured there who knew Lee Oswald. Her name is Judith Very Baker. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend it. But right now, we're going to bring her up. Judith Very Baker.
Hi, everybody. Is this too loud for you, or is it okay?
Oh, perfect. You're good.
Okay, great. I can't believe I'm 80 years old. I have one love of my life. Oh, isn't it great? I look 60.
I thought you were 40. You look 40 to me.
At any rate, it's been quite a life. I have to tell you a little bit about this History Channel in 2003 when that episode came out. They put on the TV and everywhere that I helped create AIDS. I got death threats galore. I spent the majority of the time between 2003 and 2020 overseas. I was hit by cars 3 times. That's why I'm weird. But the interesting part is that somehow through it all, the Lord has really protected me. I spent 13 years.
Oh, dear.
Oh dear.
There goes
Well, he got shot. Poor man. We may have to protect him. He certainly didn't get protected by the Secret Service, as you know. All of you, I have to tell you, I thought because of Thanksgiving nobody would be here. We thought we had plenty of time. We couldn't find a place to park. We had pretty things set up, but please forgive us that it's a little bit hectic. We're just so glad you came. Oh gosh, look at you. Do you care about John F. Kennedy?
Yeah!
Raise your hand. Our first president who tried to make a real big change.
Yes.
You know what they did to him. You know what's going to happen to us if we don't step up and protect our country and stand up for our country, you're going to let them roll right over you. I hope you won't. I hope that next time when they tell you to lock down and take the shots and wear the masks and obey, 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 I hope you'll think for yourself and do not comply.
Amen.
Do not comply. We don't need the government to tell us what kind of shots to take. All right?
No, we don't.
Now, I did cancer research. I worked with the SV40 monkey virus. And interestingly enough, I've had more interviews in the last 6 months because of the SV40 monkey virus promoters found in these are portions of the SV40 monkey virus. Anyway, it started in '63, weaponizing cancer. We could have cured cancer many years ago, but there's no money in it. Cancer palaces, cancer treatments, chemo, radiation, specialists. Where are the people to cure it? They buy these small companies up that can cure cancer, and they disappear. Seen it over and over again. We could have cured cancer in the 1970s with bacteriophage. You don't even know what that is, probably. How many of you know what bacteriophage is? Raise your hand if you do. See, this is, bacteriophage is, the word bacteria means bacteria, and phage means eat in Greek. So, cancer acts like a bacteria. That is, it's something that's foreign in your body. But I'm not going to go into that anymore, except to say back in 1963, Lee Oswald had to pretend to be a communist, had to pretend to be pro-Castro, to protect us while we were trying to create a biological weapon to kill Castro. It's taken a long time for me to prove it, but my witnesses keep coming forward. Evidence keeps coming forward. I've never been sued, even though I bring up some big, important names. They don't dare open that can of worms. I just want to say that it's been worth the struggle. I couldn't see my grandchildren grow up or any of that. But I did it for him. I did it for Lee. I did it for our country. So who is Lee Oswald? I want you to think about North Korea right now. Pretend that Lee Oswald was in the newspapers defecting to North Korea. And he's there 30 months, and he tells everybody, I'm going to shoot anybody that's wearing an American uniform. And I am renouncing my citizenship. And then what do you think if you find out that Lee Oswald, of all people, is walking around a free man after 30 months in the USSR, comes back with a Soviet wife and a child. I knew when I met him, that's one of the reasons we got along so well. I'm not stupid. That man walking around a free man 6 months after the Cuban Missile Crisis, a free man, he was one of ours. And it didn't take that long to figure out how much he was one of ours. So I'm going to tell you something you're not going to find in Wikipedia. Get this. On October 23rd, 1956, I come from a Hungarian family. I have my sister here. Do we have Hungarian? That's my sister saying yes. Her died of cancer, and I wanted to cure cancer shortly before the Hungarian Revolution. On the 23rd of October, 1956, we had the most horrible experience with shortwave radio, listening to the Hungarian students begging the United States to help us. And you could hear machine guns in the background. You could hear screams. Help us. You said you'd help us if we revolt. We didn't. We did not. But I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't the only one listening to those kids were being machine gunned down, including some of our relatives, my sisters and mine. Because Lee Oswald was also listening. And he was 17. He had turned 17 a week before. He heard that on October 23rd, 1956. He joined, and you're not going to find this in Wikipedia, he joined the Marines the very next day to fight the Reds. Did you know that? They don't tell you that he joined the Marines to help, like the Hungarians and anybody else who's being harmed by the communists. So he became a spy, and he was so easy to frame, don't you see? And he didn't dare say, I'm CIA. Actually, he was borrowed by the CIA for the ONI. He couldn't. If he said he was trying to defend himself and say he was one of the agents in the Soviet Union, where he had been for 30 months with different contacts, they would have killed them all. You know, our country, the ones who betrayed him, they knew he would not defend himself that way. All he could say is that he was a patsy. He was a brave man. We're going, after this ceremony is over, we're going to go, everyone who wants to go over to Rose Hill, we're going over there with flowers to Lee's grave. You know, they used to go and urinate on his grave, but now there are flowers. There are lots of flowers there. We're going to bring some more. You're welcome to come along to Rose Hill, Shannon Rose Hill, and we'll give you the address if you need help. Anyway, we'll be saying prayers there. And we know that many people now go there with a different kind of attitude. And the more you know, the more I think you're going to admire that man. And I loved him. I knew what kind of man he was. And I want to share with you a little bit more. I'm going to tell you a little about his sense of humor. I did not get finished interviewing till midnight last night, and the night before it was the same. They've just come from all over the place. It didn't used to be that way. Oh, she's not credible. Yeah, everybody goes and defends the most hated man in America, right? Because, just for the fun of it. No, I did it because it was wrong, because he was a good man, because I loved him and he loved me. All right, but anyway, I'll tell you a little story. He had to fill out a new passport. Why? His old passport was stamped with Soviet all over it. I mean, you can't use that for ID if you've been out of the country a long time. So he wanted to get a new passport. Anybody out here know how long it took him to get his new passport? Anybody know? 24 hours.
Dealey.
Well, back then, we didn't believe that. We trusted our government. We were such fools. We were so innocent. He never dreamed. You should see his face. You go look on YouTube when they say he has been, he knew he was going to be arrested, he knew he couldn't escape, but he never dreamed that they were going to charge him with the death of the president. It's a man that we now know, Abraham Bolden, at our conference. He spoke at our conference today, a few days ago, this week. Abraham Bolden and James Douglas and others. In 1999, I told people, Lee told me, one of the last things he told me before we'd ever seen.
JFK's assassination research work, what she said may have sounded a little strange. And to put it in context, again, I'm going to strongly recommend that you watch her video, episode 8 of The Men Who Killed Kennedy. Again, you can find it on jfkindex.com. And it will put it into context. She knew Lee Oswald. She loved Lee Oswald. She knew and was working with him on a top secret project to create a cancer to kill Castro. They were doing top secret work. That's why there are no photos of the two of them together. That's why she struggles to find witnesses to prove that she was there, but she was there. And if you read her book, Me and Lee, or Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, which I strongly recommend, it will turn your perspective of what you may have thought you knew if you haven't read it.
One of the things that I learned as a result of reading that book and getting to know Judith Berry Baker is Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill John F. Kennedy. He gave his life trying to save him. And in my book, he's a patriot and a hero. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked Judith's sister, Linda, to come up and say a few words. She's a little shy, but I think we can get her up here. If you saw The Men Who Killed Kennedy, episode 8, she was in that video. And I met her a number of years ago, I guess it was. And she's just a real treasure. She comes here most years, and she has a couple things that I'd like her to say. Linda?
I just want to thank everybody here for coming to this event and have been faithful comers, I guess, for many years. My sister has put her heart and soul into this, her love for Lee, and how she wanted to be the person who saved his reputation. And I think she's done a very good job of that. I thank all of you for supporting her. Also, I don't want to sound like I'm pushing books, but you really need to read both of her books.
All right, yeah, with Jim Fetzer, Larry Rivera, the top JFK researcher. All right, I'm gonna maybe blow y'all away. Don't throw too many things at me. I have a little cold, so I'm not really speaking that well. Now, before JFK took office, after he took office, he had some very deep concerns. Number one, Vietnam. Also racial issues, civil rights, all that was happening. But none more than the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the Middle East. So about 2017, a bunch of documents were released, so you can look them up on your phone. Now this one got through, and this is a letter, verbatim, from John Kennedy to the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. This telegram is from the Department of State to the embassy in Israel, transmitting the text of a letter from President Kennedy to Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion on arrangements to visit Dimona. If you're not sure what Dimona is, it was their nuclear weapons facility, and they promised that there would be no nuclear weapons building. However, it would be for peaceful purposes only. All right, so here's the letter from John Kennedy. You should deliver the following letter from Prime Minister Ben-Gurion. Dear Prime Minister, I welcome you this letter of May 12th. I'm giving it careful study. Meanwhile, I have received from Ambassador Barber a report of this conversation with you on May 14th regarding the arrangements in visiting the Dimona reactor. So what they were doing, they were sending inspectors every 6 months, and this has been happening from the time that Kennedy got in office, all right? Just like they do in Iran now, they go in and make sure that you're not building nuclear bombs. Okay, I should add some personal comments on the subject. I'm sure you will agree that there's no more urgent business for the whole world than the control of nuclear weapons.
Those things are very controversial, and frankly, I want to honor Kennedy here in his idea that he wanted peace. We need to look for peace wherever we can find it. Okay, I'm going to hand this over now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to bring up our speaker that I was starting to think wasn't going to make it. And I couldn't believe that he wasn't going to make it if he was still alive. He's very much alive, and he's very much here. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Dallas welcome to Robert Groden.
Folks, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for caring about the memory of President Kennedy. I hope that someday soon we'll be here knowing all the truth about what actually did happen. It's been 60 years since this happened, and I've been working on the case for 60 years. Back in 1975, I had the privilege of releasing the Zapruder film of the assassination to the public on Good Night America on ABC TV. It's made quite a difference. The fact that the case got reopened was because of the film. If you have heard that the film has been retouched or faked in any way, Please don't believe it. It's not true. The people that are responsible for the cover-up must be laughing their rear ends off because of people that say that. John Kennedy died because he was trying to make the world a safer, better place for everybody, not just the privileged few. He came from privilege, but that's not what he was there for. He didn't favor it. He gave it to everybody. The fact that you're all here is a wonderful testament to the fact that we have a great deal of care about what happened to him, and we really do need to know the whole truth. We don't have it. I was in high school the day that it happened. I was a high school student, rather, but I wasn't in school. I was at home playing hooky. Well, if Ferris Bueller could do it, I could do it. Anyway, I heard the first reports on NBC, the news reports when the president was shot, even before he was pronounced dead. So I heard about it at the very, very, very beginning. And the first reports on NBC said that the assassin was being chased across the railroad tracks by the police. That kind of disappeared within an hour or so, along with the reports that the rifle found on the 6th floor was a Mauser, 7.65 Mauser. Very, very soon it morphed into a 6.5-pound Carcano. And nobody ever mentioned the guy across the railroad tracks again. I'm from New York City. In New York, everything is a grid. It's north, south, east, west. The CIA will stop at nothing. Anyway, I didn't know from Dealey Plaza, I didn't know from anything else. To me, in my mind's eye, when they say they're being chased across a railroad track behind an office building, I pictured in my mind a row of buildings, the way it is in New York, and a row of railroad tracks behind it. That's why in my mind's eye, I never forgot what was said. And that's what got me to realize that something weird was going on here. And I started to investigate it right away, the very first day. And there was not very much to learn at the beginning, but over a period of time, a great many researchers, known as the critics, have come out and found a great deal of evidence. And in the memory of those that have passed, Harold Weisberg, Sylvia Marr, Mark Lenny, Ben Jones, so many others. We owe a great deal of thanks to them for what we do know. I'm not going to take too much more time, but I want to tell you, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and keeping the president's memory alive. It's very important that we don't forget. It may be too late for justice in this case, but it's never too late for the truth. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Groden. I'm so glad he was here today. The ceremony just would not be the same without him. Before I bring up the next person, we've got a reading by Bob Cochran. Bob, are you going to be ready here in just a second? One of the things I was looking out over the plaza, and I was thinking back to that day, and just imagine the lack of security that JFK was given. Turning right onto Houston, turning left onto Elm, all these skyscrapers, windows open, the security detail had been stripped from him. Anybody who's walked Dealey Plaza, even if you're here for the first time, you can see this would be a sniper's paradise. And that alone should give you a clue that what we were told was a lie. The Secret Service stood down that day and allowed JFK to be assassinated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to bring up Bob Cochran, who's going to do some readings from JFK. Do you want to sit there? Bob, you can just do it right from there if you want. Okay, I'll bring the microphone to you. Bob Cochran.
Allow the spirit of John F. Kennedy to continue to enrich our nation in his wake. Allow goodness and light to accompany our journey forward. Always remember the power of a kind word. Refuse the tempest for the peace that dwells within. Quiet to the sound of many waters. Listen to the wind.
Thank you. Bob Cochran.
It's a big thing in our lives, isn't it? So I'd like to sing this song in honor of everybody here. You can sing with me, please. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like us. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Thank you, Gary. You know, every once in a while you see something that just really touches you, and I just saw something that touched me, and I want to share it with you. So, as Gary was singing, I looked out over on the boulevard and saw a woman on a motorcycle, dressed in pink and black, and as she approached the X in the road, she gave the sign of the cross as she's driving, and it just really touched me.
Wow.
You know, JFK was a Catholic. I'm not, but JFK was a Catholic, and that just was a really touching thing. I was going to say it a little bit before, and I forgot to do so since I've got a little bit of time to fill for the moment of silence. How many of you know that Robert Groden just celebrated his wedding anniversary a couple days ago? As I avoided the party and engrossed myself into the Warren report, I don't know what. I don't remember what I saw. I don't remember what I don't know that I learned anything specific, but I definitely came away with a feeling. Have you ever had that where you don't really know how to know what you know, but you just have a feeling? Well, I came away from that night with a feeling that there was something wrong, that we'd been lied to. And as I continued my exploration into all things JFK, I came across a book in, I think it was 1997, 1998, called Best Evidence by David Lifton. How many of you have read the book or know of the book? It is an incredibly important book in the work of the JFK assassination. It helped me understand the thing that I could not understand. For those of you who might be new to it, and probably were stuck where I was when I was first looking into it, the doctors at Parkland said that the wounds were entrance wounds. And the autopsy doctors from Bethesda said they were exit wounds from behind. And David Lifton couldn't accept that either set of doctors were lying. And so he came up with a theory that he was able to look into for the next, I think it was 13 years before he released his book, to show that neither of the set of doctors were lying, but the body had lied to the doctors. Again, if you're new to this, that's going to sound strange, but again, I encourage you to read the book. But there's also a video where he interviewed the people who had contact with JFK's body on that day. And it's one of those videos on jfkindex.com. It's called Best Evidence. I highly recommend that you look into it. Okay, we still have a few more minutes. Robert, do you have anything else to tell us? Janet, do you want to talk to us? Okay, Janet has something to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Groden.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to see so many people here. I was expecting to see a crowd, but not this many people. You guys are terrific. If there is anybody here who is just beginning their journey of learning about the JFK assassination, I have to tell you, There's a lot of great stuff, as you all know, out there on YouTube, but don't disregard some of the very early work that was done because it's really interesting. If you haven't read Sylvia Maher's book or tried to plow your way through any of Harold Weisberg's books, it is worth it. It truly is. Another book I would recommend for everybody if you're interested in the Tippit case is Into the Nightmare by Joseph McBride. I believe that's the best piece done on it. In addition, my husband has 8 books. Pick one. And they're all wonderful. And the last 3 have a great deal to do with the photographs and things that are taken. Because photos, it gives us a much better idea of what actually happened than what somebody is telling us when we can see it out for ourselves. So thank you if you're researching. If you need any tips or help, get on one of the podcasts or one of the online groups, and people will be glad to help you or answer your questions or anything else you may want. I also wanted to let you know that beginning tomorrow night, there's a series that's going to begin on Hulu called 4 Died Trying. And it's going to be a really, really well done, in-depth documentary on both Kennedy brothers, Dr. King, and Malcolm X. And I would really recommend that you take a look at it. Okay? Again, thank you all so much for being here. You're terrific.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Janet Groden. Well, we've got just a couple more minutes before our moment of silence. And one of the things I was going to tell you about, I don't know how many of you have heard about this, but on the Paramount Plus channel, they just released a new video. And it's called JFK, What the Doctors Saw, where they interviewed the Parkland doctors who are now talking about things that they've said all along, but was repressed or they were afraid to come out publicly with. When I first heard about it, I really wasn't inclined to even look at it because typically on November, they come out with one. Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Bowers will now play Cats. Anthony J. Bowers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got into a little bit of trouble because when I brought up Gary to sing Amazing Grace, it was supposed to be a sing-along. Gary, are you still here? Would you be willing to do it again? Ladies and gentlemen, would you be willing to sing along with him?
Yeah.
All right, one more time. Let's please, let me hear you if you want to sing along. Let me hear you. All right, in honor of everyone this day. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise as when we first begun. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor.
Okay, looks like, do we have Craig Dealey? Craig, are you here? Okay, we're gonna need a little help. Craig is in a wheelchair. Craig, are you ready? Are you here?
I see you.
Come on, Maria.
Ruth had a tear in her eye.
Oh yeah, my phone works. It says I am by the parking lot. By the parking lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lorianne, thank you.
Really quick to you, I'm with the 16th anniversary of the assassination of our 35th president. I reflect on the fact I was only 6 years old, but even at that young age, I knew the world had
We're just going to start passing out flowers. So if you'd like to have a flower to remember this day.
They knew he was insane. Yeah, he was. They knew he was insane. And they threw him out of bed. They didn't want him to come on, man. He took the asshole back. Marina was in the Communist Party. Marina was in the Communist Party. She was a pharmacist. She's a Russian communist princess. What is she doing with Oswald?